It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Dutch. I'm your host, Mains, my colleague in the danger zone in Rainford, a man who also gets his hair cut like Justin Herbert. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
A truly abysmal haircut. It doesn't help that he still appears to have his acne. So obviously that has just made him look ridiculously young. So quick question. So we seem to have, well, I have developed this habit of opening with a particularly irrelevant question.
Please.
Today is my beloved's birthday.
It is.
So I thought I would open with, what's the worst present you've ever received from someone you thought knew you well?
That's a very good question, Neil. And I'm not sure off the top of my head I have an answer, which I think is a good thing, right? That's got to be a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Go on. You must have one because you've asked it.
Well, no, I can't really think of any, to be honest. I mean, the best one that I always think of in this situation was the Christmas present. I believe it was the year before I was born, so obviously, we're going back a ways here. My dad was telling my mum how ecstatic he was about the present he bought it for her. And he just kept going on about it, saying, "Oh, can't wait. You're going to love this. Can't wait for you to see it." So he built it up to such a ridiculous extent that the air was, I say I wasn't there, so I can't tell you this, but I imagine the air must have been electric, with the tension and anticipation as she opened this present. And what it was a fish-shaped oven glove.
See, the thing you gotta commend for your mum there is that your dad's still alive, and she didn't divorce him immediately. I know my wife, with her previous partner, once got a kettle and an ironing board for Christmas. Kate. Could you imagine that went well?
Where did she store his testicles, on the mantelpiece in the kitchen or the living room?
Well, he's still alive, but yeah, obviously I'm on the scene mainly due to the fact that he bought things like a kettle and an ironing board.
Now he sings soprano. To be fair to me, Dad, it was a bloody good oven glove and lasted for 15 years and only was destroyed within 2 weeks of our first dog, Norman, entering the house, because he saw it hanging off, the oven and thought, "Who are you looking at, mate?" and ripped it to pieces.
I like fish, therefore I'm eating it.
Yeah, it wasn't trout, but it was demolished as readily as it would be if it were.
That is one of the most in jokes of all time.
No one will get that,
and I'm not even going to explain it. This week, I'll tell you what we are going to explain, Neil: the quarterback situation in the NFL. There's a lot of teams based on this season who'll be probably very excited with how quarterback is going for them. There's probably some that aren't. We're going to go through all 32 teams and let you know what we think of their quarterback situation this year and going forward, and whether it's in a good place or a bad place. I'm going to let everyone in on a secret. I'm assuming when we get to mine and Neil's team, it isn't all rainbows and fluffy unicorns.
No, unless you've dreamed of a world where J.D. McKissick commands 29 targets over 2 games.
That's a lot.
If you have, then you've hit utopia. In the words of Martin Tyler, you can see salvation.
Amazing. Obviously, then we'll do fancy loser, fancy darling, and our teams of the week. But let's get things started. And when I say started, I don't mean a fight between a coach and a 6'8" offensive line coach. I mean
Allegedly.
started as in the show, with plugging into the mains. So as we said, Neil, what we're going to do is go through the divisions and the teams and find out if we believe they're happy with their QB, whether that be for this year, for next year and beyond. We're going to do every team, we're going to do every division. We'll try and keep it as short as possible. We're going to do AFC first. We're going to start with the AFC East, and we're going to start with Buffalo Bills, Neil, who was obviously Josh Allen.
Yeah, I think they're quite happy. We expected, that once they started putting pieces in place around him, that it would elevate his play. I think it's safe to say that has happened.
Do you remember that story about teams who gave up draft picks for wide receivers in a pandemic where they didn't get to practice with their quarterback, so they wouldn't be any good this year. That was cool, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Stephon Diggs is flipping awesome.
As is DeAndre Hopkins.
I'm sure we'll come on to him.
It's almost like, though, that the person who said that was, the person who came up with that hilariously bad take is the same person who advised people to stay away from Mike Davis last week, though. So, we should save face where we can.
That's true. I think the Bills are happy. That what was lost in the Hail Murray plays of last week was that Josh Allen had his own amazing final drive in that game, and he threw an absolute dime to Stephon Diggs to let's be honest, win the game.
Yeah. The thing is, though, that it's taken a while, because NFL Films, when they have their top 10 list, one of the ones they have done was the top 10 best forgotten plays, and one of them was the 75-yard touchdown reception from Larry Fitzgerald in the Super Bowl that no one remembers, no one even cares about. So it's taken this long finally for Arizona to have a miracle play to cancel out another miracle play of their own.
Miami Dolphins, Neil, I think this is simple, right? Tua's
no. They need to evaluate.
That was one of the greatest, Bill Belichickian moves of all time by Robert Flores. Yeah, we need to see what we're doing because we're not sure if he's any good.
If I was a beat writer, obviously it's virtual, but if it's virtual, I'd just hit escape, walk away, say, nah, you're wasting my time.
If you're interested in Tua, the Ryan Russillo podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network on Monday had Trent Dilfer on, and Trent he used to do he's now a high school coach. He's a high school coach in Middle Tennessee, but they used to run the quarterback camp, right? And he's like, for those who, if Tua was healthy, he was the best quarterback. It's brilliant. I would recommend a listen.
Trent Dilfer, of course, had the best initials that if you're a quarterback you should have. Unfortunately, he preferred throwing INTs to TDs. So,
really, one more Super Bowl than me and you, though.
Well, yeah.
The New York Football Jets, Neil.
No, they're not happy. Clearly, they're not. It's not. We've said this ad nauseum. It's not his fault, but we'll never know how good a quarterback Sam Darnold could have been. But we're certainly never going to find that answer while he's in New York. So no, they're not happy.
Do you think he's salvageable?
No. I think he's salvageable if a above average offensive mind can get hold of them. But there are so few of them about. This is going to he's going to have to land somewhere like San Francisco. Someone like, basically, I think San Francisco is the only place, because we've seen that, for want of a better word, that system can be almost made quarterback proof.
Yeah.
And it can hide a deficient quarterback. I think if he goes anywhere else, the best he's going to be is a career backup. And I'm not saying it's all his fault, but he hasn't shown enough to rise above the level of horse crap he's had to deal with.
Correct. New England Patriots, I guess. Cam has done okay. Good victory on Sunday, but again, it was more of a hide your quarterback kind of situation. When your best throw is thrown by Jacoby Myers, what a rainbow throw that was to Rex Burkhead. I'm not sure that Cam Newton is on the roster this time next year.
No, I think they have a absolute shed load of cap space next year, even with the diminished cap. We've seen that they cannot draft and develop wide receivers, so they need to chase someone in free agency. Whoever the quarterback is, I'm not sure that their 2021 quarterback is on the roster.
Yeah,
I think for what he has been asked to do, Cam Newton is doing okay. But do I think he's doing enough for them to think you're the answer for the next 5 years? I really don't.
Let's move over to the AFC North. First of all, the Bengals, Neil. I think it's a no-brainer, right? Joe Burrow's done exactly what we would expect him to do, if not more.
Yeah, I think again they need to now start looking at building up his protection, and where necessary, investing in his weapons. But I think what they expected of Joe Burrow, I think they're quite happy with what they've got.
Round 1, offensive lineman. Round 2, offensive lineman. Round 3, offensive lineman. Round 4, offensive lineman. Round 5, offensive lineman. Just keep on taking offensive lineman until you get it right, Bengals, because otherwise you're going to get that man killed. Cleveland Browns, Neil, a tougher one. Baker Mayfield has been okay this season, but in what I would describe as in similar to San Francisco, in a you can hide your quarterback deficiency style offense. There's going to be next season is the question of, does he sign the 5th-year option? So they need to make a decision if they're happy with their quarterback ASAP. On
the Roto World pod, this on Wednesday night, so listen to it on Thursday, Josh Norris, Denny Carter and Roto Pat, all friends of the pod, and we're talking about the Browns. And I think it was Denny who said that the offense we know is going to be the same as it was in Minnesota. But at this stage of the game, from what we've seen, does Baker Mayfield's upside come close to Kirk Cousins? Because you look, Cousins, when he's asked to throw the ball 10 times, will get you 160 odd yards and a couple of touchdowns. Baker Mayfield, when the training wheels are fully on, just seems to be there. Now, as you say, when it works because they want to run the ball. But the question is that we've seen in the 3 games they've lost, they haven't even scored double-digit points. So when they're winning, it seems to work okay. When they're not winning and they have to come from behind, he doesn't seem to be able to put the team on his back. Now, I think as I say, they're probably okay with him this year. I think last year was such a bad year for him to be salvageable. Is a victory, but he needs then, whatever they do this year, he needs to show that he can still grow next year.
I mean, let's be honest, it's not like he hasn't got talent around him. We're talking about the Bengals and whether they got enough talent. Like, they've given Baker Mayfield chances to succeed. He has got really good players, so they need to make a decision on it, need to make it fast. If you use Kirk Cousins as an example, that's not necessarily a good example if you want a franchise quarterback who's going to win you Super Bowls. Now, I think Kirk Cousins is a franchise quarterback and is serviceable, but is he elite? No. And he is, the middle, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, tough one. Ravens, Neil. Not been as good this year as last year. I wonder if that is a way the offense is being ran, but then again the question becomes, is the offense being ran to suit the quarterback?
And probably not. I mean, despite you can say, oh, look at all the draft picks they've invested at wide receiver. Yeah, okay, Marquise Brown is not the guy. He's not living up to his end of the bargain. He's shouting his mouth off and wanting the ball. Well, you're not catching it. Miles Boykin is a bust. He is now he's seeing fewer snaps week after week. Devin Duvernay, they're not using him. James Prochet, they're not using him. This team signed Des Bryant from the practice squad in 2020. The receiving core is a joke, so it's not helping Lamar Jackson. He's running. He's not forgotten how to run. He's still one of the best pure runners in the NFL. But if you want him to develop as a passer, you've got to put something around him. So I think they're happy with him as long as this is the scheme they still want to run. I just worry about it, how much they do still need to put around him. But I think we need to put better players around him. It's not what we've got would be fine with another quarterback.
Yeah, I think sometimes, when you just every team gets injuries, right? And that's understandable and whatever, but, losing Marshall Yonder and Ronnie Stanley from that offensive line is massive, right? They're not.
Well, yeah.
They're not small players in a multitude of different ways. So I'm higher than most Lamar Jackson. He still has work to do. I don't think he's got the strongest arm in the world. But, he's had an MVP-style season. He needs to improve. He needs to improve throwing the ball. And I think that that's just the way it is. Because, we can say he's like Michael Vick, because that's, really lazy commentary. He's not. Like, he runs, but he doesn't throw it like Vic threw it.
Vic had a cannon for
That's
a left
what I'm
arm.
saying. He doesn't throw it like Michael Vick, so he needs to get better at that short to intermediate stuff to survive in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh Steelers, Neil. I'm not convinced that this is a happy place this year, but this is borrowed time, ticking time bomb. Something needs to be done, and Mason Rudolph isn't the answer.
No, we are seeing the weekly decline of Ben Roethlisberger's arm strength. He is, as I say, any ball he sends more than 15 yards down the field is being propelled by hope rather than expectation. He's not being helped by the fact that they can't run the ball. James Conner is not it. And this is a team, that they want to play good defense and assert themselves on the ground. Okay, well, they're doing one of them. Now, you're going to have games that they had last week where Ben can pass for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. He has very talented weapons around him. But when you go deep into the playoffs, it's the same with Peyton Manning. The good defenses are here to play now. You're not just going to be able to pick on these cornerbacks. So, and also let's be honest here. If the Steelers win the Super Bowl, he's pissing off, surely.
You'd assume so.
Yeah.
Move over to the AFC South. The Indianapolis Colts put a 1-year stick and plaster over the fact that they don't have a quarterback, but they have a really good roster. They still have a really good roster. I'm not sure the quarterback's the answer, though.
No, they're getting by with Phillip Rivers, but I don't think... I think it would set the team back quite a way if they said, yeah, we'll run it back with them next year, because we've always known Phil Rivers is not a cannon. It's it's a tactical weapon. His arm, shall we say? Yeah. It's more of a smart missile than an A-bomb. If that drops off and he loses it completely, then he is completely neutralised, and you get to a situation where you could be 2-6 next year, and you're paying him all this money that you could have invested elsewhere. He's helping them get by. The offense they are running is suited to him, but he's not played to a level where you'd think, do you know what, we can do this again. Should we do it again? Yeah, we'll come back next year and do it. I don't know where they go, because Brissett is out of contract as well.
The issue the Colts have got is an issue that something they decided to be good. Yeah, they decided they can win, and they're going to win 10 games. And there's 4-5 better teams in the AFC. So congratulations on winning the AFC South, or getting a playoff place, but you're now picking 17th in the draft, so you ain't getting a quarterback there. So what are you doing? You giving Andrew Luck a call and see what happens? I don't know.
I think they were the prime example of, if you're going to go in to win this year, you go all in.
Yeah. So
maybe they should have made a bigger push for Tom Brady or something like that. But instead they settled for Phil Rivers. And Phil Rivers is a wonderful player, borderline Hall of Fame in terms of his numbers. I know that's going to piss some people off, but I don't care. But I think signing him at this stage was, as you say, we'll be good enough to get in the playoffs. But you won't win it. An awful lot is going to have to go right and wrong for other people for you to win it.
Yeah. Jacksonville, Neil, blow it up, start again.
Yeah. Not a chance in hell they do not take a quarterback with their very, very early pick.
Houston Texans, the only thing they have is Deshaun Watson. Mm-hmm. So they must be happy with him, and they pray to all the people above that he doesn't become get me out of here guy.
Yeah, because if he does, they are screwed.
Tennessee Titans is an interesting one, Neil. Tannehill hasn't been as good this year as last. I think they run it a little bit too much for me on first and second down. If you'd like that kind of statistics, listen to Warren Sharp. Absolutely brilliant on the subject. They need to throw it more. because this team is not successful at 3rd and 7. Now they have a lot of talent at wide receiver, a tight end, running back, and they've paid money for Tannehill, which means he is the quarterback for the next 2 to 3 years. But are they happy about it? I don't really know, but they haven't really got much choice.
No. I personally think they're happy with it. I think he fits what they want to do. The problem is their defense has been so bad that at times they've had to lean on him. And Ryan Tannehill is not a quarterback you want to lean on. You want him at the 20 to 30 pass attempts a game, and at above that, you're not getting much. But because they invested, in the free agency in Vic Beasley, who did nothing, Jadeveon Clowney, who's done nothing, who could possibly have foreseen that happening, they've put Tannehill in a position where they're asking him to do things that he's probably not best suited to do. So I think they're happy with him. They just need to look at what they do with the rest of their roster. Because as you say, they've made a commitment. He's not going anywhere.
Let's move over to the AFC West and the Broncos. Time to drop Drew Lock like a really heavy lock.
Yeah, I mean, some of us were saying, that they were putting pieces in place around their 2021 quarterback. It just happened that Drew Lock was going to keep the seat warm for whoever that is. And I think we've seen that is more likely than not going to happen because he is not good.
He is ungood. And they got a lot of people they tried to get a lot of talent around him and he can't use them. The LA Chargers, outside the haircut, are outrageously happy with Justin Herbert, who has surpassed everybody's first year expectations.
It's only when you actually sit and look at the table that you realise, we all joke about how chargery the Chargers can be and how they lose, until you actually realise, oh my God, they've only won 2 games. Yeah. I just assumed they were doing better than they were because they've got a quarterback. Whoever they bring in next year as the offensive coach better have something to do with quarterbacks and not running backs.
Yes.
If they're going to get the best out of him. Because last week, you've seen what Herbert can do. And you've seen what the running game can do. And you're running on early downs against the Dolphins. Come on, mate. Seriously.
Do you know why, though? Did you hear what Keenan Allen said about it?
No, but this should be good.
It basically that they were confused and scared. He literally said they were confused and scared and didn't want to throw it. So ran it. Because he didn't know what was going on the other side. That's like a fireable offence for everybody on the offence. Yeah.
And if your head coach is an offensive coach...
Yeah, exactly.
That starts with it.
It's not Vic Fangio. This dude's an offensive guy. Okay, he's a running back, so what? He does offense.
I mean, Hard Knocks did show that Anthony Lynn is one of those coaches that I think I would like him to be my coach because I would happily run through several wars for him. But I think when it comes down to the fact that he coaches not to lose and you lose, it's a bit hard to get behind fully.
That's a exactly a running back coach issue, right? Kansas City Chiefs, not even worth talking about.
I think they're okay.
I think they're okay. Las Vegas Raiders. You won the sweepstakes, Maricopa, last year. Absolutely, Derek Carr's been fantastic.
He's still got to start. He's still only on 9. He still has to start on Sunday.
This is John effing Gruden. So he may be happy right now, but and I know he's on his Tinder account swiping left and right for quarterbacks. Always
reminds me of a story Gordon Banks told. He played an England game when Sir Alf Ramsey was the manager. It was after the World Cup as well. So after they finished, they were packing up. Gordon Banks went, "Okay, boss, see you next time." And Alf Ramsey went, "Will you?" This is Gordon Banks, like one of the England's greatest keepers of all time. But he's just like, no, you were okay today, but tomorrow I might, we'll see how we go. Yeah, Derek Carr is executing the offense the way that John Gruden wants to execute at the moment, i.e., do no harm, be efficient, and we'll run the crap out of the thing. Who knows that, next March, he decides, okay, I want to go air raid now, and we need to fill the air with footballs, and Degsy isn't there. But for now, if we assume that what Derek Carr is doing is what John Gruden wants him to do, then he's fine next year as well.
Let's move over to the NFC East, Neil. This should be fun. The Dallas Cowboys. I assume pray to whatever gods they look up to that their quarterback becomes healthy again and they can pay him whatever the franchise tag is, because he ain't signed a long-term deal, right?
The problem is that they've already shown that they're not happy with their quarterback situation, because they would have signed him. And the injury is something they will use against him to try and, to narrow him down, try and get him to try and lowball him. I've said myself that he should tell him to F off. When he recovers, he should say, no, I want a team that wants to commit to me. I've done my apprenticeship. I now want to be the guy. And they've shown that they were not happy to do that, despite the fact that Andy Dalton, Ben DiNucci, Garrett Gilbert have come in and look like absolute clowns. I think if the Cowboys finish in contention for one of the quarterbacks, they're not going to get the first overall pick. They're probably not going to get the second. But if they're in the third or fourth,
like Zach Wilson sweepstakes, right?
If they start looking, they only need to fall in love with one of these people to decide, do you know what? Maybe we could spend the money on beefing up the offensive line again, or improving the defense now that we get a cheap quarterback who's probably quite good. The Cowboys' 2021 quarterback is not on the roster.
Philadelphia Eagles, Neil. This is simple. Regardless of play, regardless of whatever you want to talk about in Philadelphia on radio shows with John or whoever, the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles is Carson Wentz. It's prohibitive to even have a conversation about getting rid of him. Now, what else is prohibitive? Right now, on a $175 million salary cap, next year, the Philadelphia Eagles salary cap situation is $250 million. That's $80 million over the cap. So I'm not sure they're going to get rid of Carson Wentz and his cap hit of $70 million.
Yeah. The way to make you feel better about Carson Wentz in 21, it's quite simple. You hire an offensive coordinator. You don't have a plethora of staff all doing the job without the title. You hire a quarterback coach who is not Carson Wentz's mate and will push him. You find someone to come in and answer the question why so many of your fucking players are getting injured left, right and centre. You start the same 5 offensive linemen every week. There you go. Now you put all that in place and Carson Wentz is still trying to do hero ball things. Then you've got people around him who are going to say to Doug, get him out. Bench him, sit him. He's not up to it. Because at the moment, you've got people there saying, no, it's all right, Carson. It's okay. Don't, no. Tell you what, we'll do this pathetic little sequence where we'll put Jalen Hurts in, but we'll never let him pass the ball. Jesus Christ, I'm not a defensive coordinator, but at the moment, I see Carson Wentz come down to the bottom of the screen, Jalen Hurts under centre, I know he's running the ball. If I know it, I think cleverer people than me. To respect him as a runner, you have to let him pass the ball. Last week, see, I know this is slightly off topic, but I'm ranting out. I'm on a theme now. Last week was up there with one of the most embarrassing Eagles losses of my 20 years watching the NFL. 20 years today. It was the first game I ever watched for 20 years today. Because the Giants are shit. The Giants are crap. The Eagles have owned them. Their quarterback is garbage. Their offense is garbage. Their defense is garbage. Their offensive coordinator is Jason Garrett. And you played out of a bye week with no enthusiasm, no energy. And you produced that. Now, yeah, I know it was pathetic on defense as well. But the defense has its own issues. That we're not talking about the defense here. That was a complete and utter failure from everyone, from Jeff Lurie down to the kit man. And it's because there are too many voices and too many people do not know which one they're supposed to be listening to. And this is what happens when you have a passing game coordinator, a senior offensive assistant, a quarterback consultant, an Avon lady. This is what happens when you do not have you don't have a demarcation of duties, and you have yes men in the positions they shouldn't be in. Eagles are done. This is pathetic. I say they could still win the division. Well, I'm terribly sorry. That's an indictment of me, you, the Cowboys, the Giants.
It's got balls to do with me.
Yeah, the Eagles could still win this division with a 5-10-1 record. Jesus Christ, no. The Eagles are going to lose every game for the rest of the season, and quite frankly, I hope they do, because that's the only way change is going to happen. Because if things somehow blag their way into the playoffs at 5-10-1, some idiots in that organisation will convince themselves, do you know what, if we have a bit of luck with injury next year, we could do a bit better. Ugh.
What year is it?
It's 2020.
What year did you win the Super Bowl?
2017.
There's a rule that I've learned. You can't moan about your team for 5 years, so go F off. How about that? How about that? So that 5 minutes, I'm going to delete off the show, because that rant is not allowed until 2022.
Is this Gomez Adams opening his, we don't discuss new business till third quarter, yeah?
Correct, right. The football team did the honourable thing on Sunday and lost. Don't make it obvious. Play hard. Score points. Move the ball. Well done, all things. Then do something stupid and lose the game. Just one of them things, Neil. Just one of them things, and another step closer to hopefully the second pick in the draft.
Yeah. Bless him. Alex Smith is a great story, but Jesus Christ.
Every time he steps back, I fear.
Yeah.
I don't like watching it. Not because of nothing to do with Alex, just because I want him to be safe, and I'd prefer that he wasn't there. But there you go.
I'd say the only one who probably will be Kyle Allen. Will probably still be the backup, whoever they have next year. But the other two,
New York Football Giants. You could have done everybody in the NFC East a massive solid there last week by allowing them to think that Daniel Jones is the answer to a certain question. He's not. He's not very good. I don't want to go on to the Eagles again, but why does that guy always try and cut off dead fast so Daniel Jones can run on the outside for touchdowns and 80-yard runs? That's cool, isn't it? But anyway, Daniel Jones is not the answer. But I think
as long as Dave Gettleman is in charge.
Yeah, but I think he'll still be there next year.
Yeah, just a quick one. The Eagles at the moment are allowing 3.4 yards per carry to running backs this season. They're allowing 8.7 yards per carry to quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends.
Cool. Let's move on to the NFC North. Otherwise, the show will never end. Chicago Bears. It's not on the roster. That I was listening to the Athletic Football Show before, and Robert Mays, who, let's be honest, is a Bears fan, thinks that it's the worst situation in football. It's worse than Jacksonville. It's worse than the Jets. It's worse than the football team. He's not 100% sure if they have any players on the way up on the whole roster. That's an issue. Trubisky and Foles are gone, as is Nagy, as is Pace. Good luck to the next guy.
Yeah, they are painful to watch on offense.
I've got a great story about the Bears. Let me do it. So Warren Sharp also did this. So obviously they changed their play caller this week. And they were still rubbish. So therefore, it's obviously not the play calling, right? I'm going to give you an analogy. You go to a restaurant, your favourite restaurant. Let's go to Cowshed in central Liverpool. Great steakhouse, right? You order your steak. How do you order your steak, Neil?
Medium.
Okay, you order medium. It comes and it's well done. So you send it back. say, I want somebody else to cook the steak because that guy's ballsed it up. You get the steak, you come back, new steak, same medium, comes back again, well done. What do? Do you blame the cow? No, because it's not the fucking cow's fault. It's the chef's. They're both shit. So guess what? It's not the offense's fault. It's the play calling. Get over it. Hashtag blame the cow.
Yeah, it's one of those. Then, if it's just the play, if the players are fine, and it's the play calling is that. Well, why not just do multiple choice? Literally have the playbook from Tecmo Bowl come up on the big screen at Soldiers Field, and fans can log in on the Wi-Fi, and the best one can pick it.
For the love of God, get Allen Robinson someone to throw to him.
It's a tragedy. It's as I say, he is. Andre Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald look over at Allen Robinson and they cry for him.
The Detroit Lions, Neil, happy this year. This is coming to an end. When do they pull the trigger? See,
we've seen now that at the beginning, Matthew Stafford had this injury-prone tag that he quickly shook off and then proved himself to be ridiculously durable. He's now becoming injury-prone again.
Yeah.
And, we've seen now that his production drops off when he doesn't have Kenny Golladay. So I think there's changes coming with Detroit. So I think it's going to be a question of who comes in next tells us how happy they are with Matt Stafford in 2021. Because I think at the moment, maybe they're a bit like,
Matt Patricia goes, right? Then does a new guy think I want a new quarterback? We'll see.
It's what he's hired to do. Is he hired to come in and save Matthew Stafford? Or is he hired to come in and transform the Lions? I don't think those two are necessarily the same.
Yeah. Green Bay Packers set a quarterback.
No, I think they're okay.
Should be okay. Minnesota Vikings are in the Philadelphia Eagles camp of cool story if you're not happy with Kirk Cousins, but he literally is. You pay for him and there's no takebacks, and you own $60 million of dead cap space if you cut him next season, so enjoy him for the next 3 years.
Yeah, Rick Spielman left the receipt in his pants and then washed them. So
what can I do? Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Neil, can they squeeze out 2 years of Tom Brady?
I think they probably can. So I think that they're going to be okay next year. It's a question of, I think this off-season, though, you have to start thinking, all right, what do we do? Do we get, a youngster who maybe is on his second team? This might be a Sam Darnold situation. Yeah. Or do you just bank and basically say, we'll get some mid-rounder next year and we'll replace him? Because the question as well, we don't know how linked to Tom Brady is Bruce Arians. And if that is the case, is the succession plan going to be once Arians goes, they want to turn it over to Leftwich? If that's the case, then, who knows? But I think that's something to watch.
Atlanta Falcons.
Same as the Eagles. The Vikings. Yeah, you've paid them. You can't get rid of them.
Yeah, and they can't, but they're going to have to make some decisions soon. And again, this will be a new coach who's got to deal with this quarterback, and that be the issue, right? Mm-hmm. Carolina Panthers.
I think Teddy's done exactly what they wanted him to do. I mean, it would be lovely, and it would be lovely if just once he could throw 3 touchdowns instead of declaring on 2 every sodding week. But I think he has executed the offense exceptionally well. I think he's got everyone involved except the tight ends. I think he's done. He's been as advertised, and I think they're delighted with him.
I tend to agree, and they probably get him for 2 years, but the Matt Rule will start looking. The Saints, no, I don't think any of those 3 are. Well, Taysom Hill
is. Well, Taysom Hill's Sean Payton's son, so obviously he's going to be around. I don't think, Drew Brees has not looked right for most of this year. And it's the fact that last year the offense looked as good, maybe better, when Teddy Bridgewater was running it. Now, I'm not saying that Jameis Winston is going to come in and look incredible, because we know what Jameis Winston is. And believe me, I think in a few minutes we'll be talking a bit more about Jameis. But their cap situation, regardless of what happens to Drew Brees, is dire. So they may be forced to have Taysom Hill as their quarterback. So if they're not happy with, him, then they're screwed.
The Arizona Cardinals, do you think they're okay?
Yeah, I think they're okay, yeah. I called them a bluff a few weeks ago when we said they were winning. They are one of the teams that, whoever they're playing, it's a game I want to watch again on Game Pass. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't think this was going to be the case. Kyler Murray is a quarterback who runs. He is not a running quarterback. He runs when it is schemed up for him to do so. Otherwise, he will throw.
Talk me through that, Dion. To running as fast as possible to the left side of the field, flipping your hips and throwing a 50-yard bomb / Hail Mary to DeAndre Hopkins. Can I ask what your body would do if you even remotely attempted to do that?
Well, we're talking hip dislocation, and we're probably talking a bicep tear.
Yeah,
and then probably when I fall over, a concussion.
It's unbelievable. I've watched it about 50 times, and it's not enough.
I do love the fact as well that
I think I saw someone on that, just kind of briefly. I saw someone say that after that play, the Texans should have hired Bill O'Brien again so they could fire him again just for that one play.
I do love as well that now his nickname is IHOP. Because he called himself, he pronounced himself I.
He said I. Yeah. That was a great play by I.
Yeah, brilliant.
49ers, Neil.
No. They are carrying out actions in accordance with the law of inverse relevancy. That is, the less you intend to do about something, the more you have to talk about it. So the fact that they keep talking up that Jimmy Garoppolo is expected to be the quarterback in 21 leads me to think he probably isn't. He's not been good.
No, he hasn't been good, and he hasn't been good for a while. So yeah, it's not. Yeah. Rams. I assume they fall into the Eagles, Vikings, Falcons category of don't really care what your opinion is. Jared Goff's your quarterback next year.
Yeah, no one put a gun to your head and made you sign this fucking contract, and that's 3 F-bombs between us this year. I think that's a new record. Yeah, I mean, their offense is painful to watch as well, because it is just it's Sean McVay with a remote control playing quarterback, and there's no divorcing the two. It's dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk. It's not good to watch, and they've basically made him a poor man's Alex Smith.
The Seattle Seahawks, they're all right with their quarterback. I bet you he wishes he had a better defense so he didn't have to think he has to score 35 points every game, and every play has to be a home run. He has been, I don't know if you can say low-key or what, terrible the last 3 games. Do you think it's because he's trying to force it, because he believes he has to score so many points? Yeah, probably does. Now that they've let Russ cook, they're happy to let him burn the kitchen down, because he's thinking he has to do it. But you look, his historic touchdown rate after the first 3 weeks of the season, or the first 4 weeks, you look since, it's still high because he has always outperformed his touchdowns. Yeah. But it's virtually halved. So it helps. It doesn't help the fact that their defense is atrocious. It is the worst defense of the Pete Carroll era. Brent Coleman of the Film Room on his latest video called them the Legion of Room, which was one of the best titles I've ever heard. Which is fantastic. So yeah, I will tweet that out. But it's a very insightful video. Brett's very good, but also
he usually is quite dispassionate in what he says during his videos. You can tell he's angry and in a flabbergasted way when he talks about the Seahawks defense.
Love it. That's all the teams. That's all the quarterbacks. There's probably more that teams are happy about than I thought they'd be. But for those of you in that middle, enjoy yourselves and enjoy your quarterback because you ain't getting rid of him. Let's move over to the fancy portion of the show and start on a happy note and find out who Neil believes the fancy darling is this week.
Hello, darling.
He's back in our lives. It's Jameis Winston. Now, obviously, we know about Jameis Winston last year throwing 30 interceptions, including, I think, 7 pick sixes. But what we do know as well is he's going to go long. He's going to go long early and often. He led the league in passing yards last year. Now, we have him in an offense with players like Michael Thomas, Jared Cook, Emmanuel Sanders, Alvin Kamara. And the best thing is he's playing the worst defense in terms of fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks in the league this season in the Atlanta Falcons. If you have a gap on your quarterback this week in your fantasy teams and you're looking for a streamer, Jameis Winston is plug and play.
Jameis Winston went for $60 on the waiver wire in my UK fantasy league. Need I say more? That is one of those. That is going to be magic, that game. Atlanta versus the Saints. First of all, they hate each other. And second of all, there's just going to be a boatload of points.
Oh, God, yeah.
Start them all. Start everybody immediately.
Yeah, in the words of Nero from Star Trek, fire everything.
Let's move on to something not as happy. And that's a fancy loser.
I don't think you can trust any Philadelphia Eagles players, aside from maybe Miles Sanders, because they're all supposed to be back fit and healthy now, and we saw what they did last week. Miles Sanders has, I think, gone over 100 yards on fewer than 15 attempts in his last 3 games. No one in NFL history has done that 4 games in a row, but it doesn't matter because, he had over 100 yards, had a big long run, but who scored the touchdowns? Boston Scott and Corey Clement.
Of course they did.
Of course they did. Boston Scott, Jesus, play the Giants every week, mate. RB1. Play the Giants every week. The Eagles were train wreck. And if you're banking still on Travis Fulgham, the GOAT, he's not going to help. Jalen Reagor is still available in an obscene number of leagues. Not going to help. Dallas Goedert has come back in. He was going to be the tight end 1 the rest of the way. He's not going to help. Alshon Jeffrey came in, had 1 target, but still took meaningful snaps away from Travis Fulgham, so he's not helping anyone. And Carson Wentz, at least when he was playing badly, was not bad fantasy-wise because he was scoring rushing touchdowns. He's not now, so he's not going to help. The Browns are not the greatest defense in the world, but I think the Eagles will be able to beat themselves. So I really cannot recommend, unless you have nothing else. There's no Eagles players I'd feel confident starting other than Miles Sanders.
Awesome. On that sad note, and our second rant on the Philadelphia Eagles, let's go on to our daily fantasy teams of the week.
Mains and Duts. Daily fantasy team of the week.
Show me the money.
Show me the money indeed. Neil, who is your quarterback this week?
My quarterback, 5,900, is Jameis Winston.
Love it.
Whatever we get them.
It's so good to be back.
Don't call it a comeback.
No, I look forward to his 330 yards, 4 touchdown and 3 interception game. It'll be fun though. My quarterback is Joe Burrow. He's the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback. He's good. And he's playing the Washington professional football team. I say professional, I'm not 100% sure. Washington have got about, I think our friend Chal shared this with us, they've got 52 fantasy points this year as a defense, and 32 of them against the Cowboys and the Eagles. They were terrible on defense against the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions. So yeah, I've gone for Joe Burrow, 5,500. Running back 1, Neil.
Alvin Kamara, 9,200.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. He is the offense.
Well, he was the offense when they had Dink and Dunk Noodle on. I think
Don't be that guy.
I'm not being that guy. Of course, I'm not going to be. If I was being that guy, do you think I'd spend 9,200 on?
Yeah, that's true. I've got Alvin Kamara in our league of record, and I'm 8-2. Those two things, I've got parallels together. So I don't need no Jameis Winston coming and throwing it to Michael Thomas all the time. You do as you are flipping told, and you get it to Alvin Kamara 25 times. My running back one is in Neil's game of the week. It's Nick Chubb, Philadelphia Eagles at the Cleveland Browns, 7,000. Nick, I didn't have you last week. Okay, I had you in a dynasty league, in 2 dynasty leagues. I still won those games, so me and you are okay. We're cool. Don't do that again. It wasn't big, it wasn't clever, it wasn't appropriate, and it wasn't the right time. So if you're going to do that, do it properly, because that was weird.
I remember a few years ago, and obviously it was a few years ago, Brian Westbrook meant to stop at the 1 but actually scored a touchdown and was fuming about it because and then the next week, I think it was against the Cowboys, he got the same chance again. I've never seen a more elaborate going down at the 1 than B West managed to perform. It almost smacked of match fixing. That's how elaborate it was.
Running back 2, Neil.
Running back 2, one of the positives, and the growing situations that we've managed to see from the Detroit Lions this year is that they have embraced the idea that DeAndre Swift is the best running back they have on their roster. So he has overtaken Kerryon Johnson, which was not going to be difficult. They're finally phasing out Adrian Peterson. He's playing the Carolina Panthers. They're not great on the ground, as we saw. Obviously, it was buoyed by a 98-yard touchdown run, but they couldn't stop Ronald Jones last week. So 6,400, get a Swift one in.
I'm just gonna give you some breaking news for Neil. For Neil and for my league of record. DeAndre Swift, by the way, dealing with a concussion, didn't practice today. Alvin Kamara didn't practice today due to a foot injury.
Well, he'll have my foot of his arse if he doesn't play. So,
my running back 2 is Naheem Hines, Green Bay at the Indianapolis Colts. Let's be honest. We're all friends here. The Jonathan Taylor tailback thing, that ain't working.
Yeah, it's Trent Richardson.
That and Naheem Hines is the best back in Indianapolis right now, so he needs to be on the field more, and was, and is, and is only 5,200. Yeah. And is playing the Green Bay Packers, who have a horrific run defense.
Yeah, they are the classic run funnel defense. I mean, they're not a great defense in total, actually, but their run defense is particularly egregious. I own Jonathan Taylor in a dynasty league. I also own Naeem Hines. I have on occasion this season played them both. This week, Jonathan Taylor is sitting down while Naeem plays.
Is that the dynasty league that we're in?
Yeah.
Where Neil is bottom of this, right? But Neil put on one of the great tanking performances of a generation, and somehow had this is a IDP league. It's got defense in it, anything you can imagine, and Neil didn't have one single player with double figures.
Not one.
Whereas I, second worst person in this dynasty league this year, beat the best team in the whole freaking league, who was undefeated until that moment. What an idiot I am.
Friends don't let friends IDP.
Wide receiver 1, Neil?
Wide receiver 1, Keenan Allen. You don't have to ask if he's open. He's always open. The Chargers are playing the Jets, who are, coming off a bye week after an honourable loss to the Patriots before that. Doesn't look like Sam Darnold's going to play. Don't think it matters. The Jets were getting a reasonable cornerback play from Pierre Desire, or Desire, as I pronounce it, and then released him. So as I tweeted, they're now free from desire. No.
You don't need to tell me I know the song. People who can download podcasts don't know.
Yeah, so 7,400, Keenan Allen.
I also have Keenan Allen because he is great, and there's a chance, given who they play going forward, that he's wide receiver 1 or 2 going forward for the rest of the year. Who's your wide receiver 2 in this team, Neil?
Wide receiver 2 in this team is Emmanuel Sanders. You're noticing I want as many pieces of this Saints game as I can get. Didn't want to go all the way up to Michael Thomas because I still don't think he's healthy.
No.
Whereas I think Winston is the key that unlocks Emmanuel Sanders. So 4,900.
6,100. I've gone for Chase Claypool.
Get a room.
Well, first of all, this is only the second time I picked him. The first time...
Third.
Is it? Well,
it's the second time you've had a process.
Yeah, the first time was a complete and utter shot in the dark, and he scored 74 fantasy points. He's the most targeted player on that team, and the most explosive player on that offense. So therefore, should get more of the ball. Shout out to all the fellow Juju Smith-Schuster guys who pray he gets 12 points because he gets 4 receptions and a touchdown. Chase Claypool 6,100 and the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh. Wide receiver 3, Neil.
Wide receiver 3 is Josh Reynolds of the Los Angeles Rams. He's slowly carving out more of a role for himself at the expense of Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Last week he had 10 targets. He had 8 receptions for 94 yards against the Seahawks. Obviously, slightly
great last week. Last week.
He's one of those. He has benefited from a number change because he was number 83, I believe, last year. Now he's number 11. So you're like, it's not a wide receiver number, it's a quarterback number, but I digress. I just think that he's the one who's more likely to be doing any damage a bit further down the field. They're playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If the Buccaneers do have a weakness, it's that their cornerbacks are good, but they do give up some points sometimes, especially if maybe Reynolds goes into the slot, and they do like to move them around between Woods, Kupp and Reynolds. So 3,900, not a terrible play, not one I'm going to be ecstatic about, but let's go with it.
In my wide receiver 3 is Justin Jefferson. Minnesota Vikings are playing the Dallas Cowboys.
He's good.
He's really good. So in the who won the Diggs trade, I think everyone's done all right. Diggs is in a place where he's the number 1 wide receiver, and the Vikings have replaced Stephon Diggs with a faster Stephon Diggs. Justin Jefferson, he's playing the Vikings. He'll probably get Dallas's second best cornerback, who I believe is you, Neil.
I'm more of a safety these days.
Yeah, no shit. 6,000, lots of points, please. Tight end, Neil.
Tight end, right. Since 2016, after week 10, Kyle Rudolph averages 4 PPR points per game more than he does in weeks 1 to 9. Why is this important? Well, because after week 10, we start thinking about Christmas. And if we think about Christmas, we think about Rudolph. I'm not saying that Kyle Rudolph is better because he has a Christmassy themed name, but I'm not saying he's not. So he's playing the Dallas Cowboys. This is, of course, all incumbent on the fact that Irv Smith might miss again. If he does, Kyle Rudolph is not going to see a boatload of targets, but he is always going to be a red zone weapon and have that touchdown upside. So 3,200, Kyle Rudolph, the red zone reindeer.
Awesome. My tight end is in a game that Neil doesn't count, and a player who doesn't exist, and that's Dallas Goedert. He's 3,800. Neil's pulling the face. But don't forget, Neil is pulling the same face he pulled last week when he laughed at me for picking Mike Davis, or the time he told me not to pick Chase Claypool. So I picked Dallas Goedert. He's 3,800, and he's scoring a touchdown and getting 10 targets this week.
Doesn't happen. Game's not happening. It's not going ahead. They've already conceded.
Who's your flex, Neil?
My flex, and this is.
Oh, here we go.
This is one of those, I'm going to say it, I'm going to go and vomit, and then I'm going to sit in the bath, probably with some bleach or other cleaning products. It's Kalen Ballage.
Oh.
I don't feel great about it, but I don't want to make Kalen Ballage a thing, despite Marcus Grant last week saying we need the Ballage barrage hashtag trending. We really don't, Marcus.
Marcus is playing drunk from the Dodgers winning the World Series. Don't listen to him.
Yeah, the guy is drunk. He's 5,600 and he's playing the Jets. And Caleb Ballage was on the Jets roster for a time. So we've seen what happens in the revenge game against Adam Gase. That's it. He's plugged in. I don't want to talk about it. It's going to happen. Whatever points he gets me, let's hope that it wins me, my contest. Then let's pretend this never happened.
My flex is Cooper Kupp. He's 6,500. In a similar way to the Josh Reynolds playing the Bucks. They ain't really going to run it. I expect Kupp to get maybe the second or third corner, so I expect him to do quite well. 6,500. Neil, who's your defence and special teams? Now, I know who you should have picked.
Okay. Who should I have picked?
Based on who you picked as your quarterback, there's absolutely no way you didn't pick the Atlanta Falcons at 2,300.
You're incorrect. Because as much as I know he's going to throw interceptions, I also know there's a starting quarterback who is going to do that for 3 quarters and then maybe get benched, and that's Drew Lock. So I've gone with the Dolphins of Miami. They are 3,400. Brian Flores is a diabolical genius, and I want a piece of it.
See that. I understand that, and it makes perfect sense. But for 2,300, that's basically that's free money, and defenses score you basically no points anyway. I have a chance of multiple pick sixes. This is a no-brainer. And
don't forget, the last pick pass he threw against the Atlanta Falcons was a pick 6.
Amazing. Let's recap, Neil. Quarterback.
Famous Jameis.
I've got Joe Burrow. Running back 1.
Alvin Kamara.
I've got Nick Chubb. Running back 2.
DeAndre Swift.
I've got Naheem Hines. Wide receiver 1.
Keenan Allen.
Same. Wide receiver 2.
Emmanuel Sanders.
I've got the processed Chase Claypool. Wide receiver 3.
Josh Reynolds.
I've got Justin Jefferson, tight end.
Kyle Rudolph.
Dallas Goedert. Flex.
Kalen Ballage.
I've got Cooper Kupp. And defense and special teams.
Brian Flores.
I've got Jameis Winston's hands team, the Atlanta Falcons. It's going to be epic. I might not watch Red Zone. I might just watch Falcons Saints. It's going to be flipping great because it's going to be 40-38. Yeah. Old school.
It's an Arena League game, that one. Well, this is what would happen because obviously the Falcons have been wearing their Arena League team kit.
Yeah. On the kits, though, that matchup between the Chargers and the Dolphins was magnifique.
It doesn't happen often, but occasionally we're allowed a glimpse of perfection. And we got it last week.
That was it. Neil, where can people catch you this week?
Catch you this week on the Twitter at N13. I did my start sit on the Twitter last Sunday. I shall do it again this week. I really enjoyed it. Lots. I think it was about 40 different questions I answered. It was great. It was great. A couple of ones I championed strongly came in, like DJ Moore, Ronald Jones. I told someone not to start Devin Singletary, so that came in. That was good. I did tell someone to start Drew Brees over Ben Roethlisberger. My bad. I apologise. If you don't tweet me again, I will understand it.
We understand why, right?
Yeah, but I say usual stuff. Find my stuff at Numberfire, at Rotoviz, at Ravenswire, and if you have a start-sit decision and you need, and no one else can help you, maybe you can find me on Twitter on Sunday from 4:00 at N13.
Awesome. I am at Mainzy7. Combine me at waxing_lyrical. It's been an hour and 3 minutes of absolute joy, people. We'll see you on the other side. These top guys are out.